My name is Jodi Guerra, and I'm with Excelsior Classes. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about e-readers and the differences between e-reading technology and the old school physical books. So if you'll just let me pull up my PowerPoint slide here, we'll get started. So e-readers versus books, does it really matter? Is there a difference? There actually are some differences in which one technology versus the old school technology works better. And so let's talk a little bit about what those are. I love this one. I didn't have a rolled up newspaper, so I swatted them with my Kindle. Not that I'm advocating abusing animals. But yeah, technology is changing the way that we're doing many different things, right? Including reading and how we interact in a classroom, as well as just how we do our homework. And Kindles are great, right? But are they a good substitute for physical books? There are many, many different positive things that an e-reader does. For one, financially, it's much cheaper, right, to buy books and download them onto your Kindle or your Nook, or just even read them on your computer, right? There's usually a significant financial savings, and that's always a plus. Additionally, you can store a lot of things, right? If you happen to be like me, you might be a collector of books. I have books on top of books on top of books, and it doesn't seem to matter how many times I try to purge this system, we're still inundated with books. This kind of technology, these e-readers, they take a lot of that out, right? Because you have so much available storage. And that's a wonderful thing too. So that's another positive. It's also much more mobile, right? Sometimes you want to take 3 or 4 books with you while you're going to be riding in the car, or perhaps waiting for your siblings or for your children at various events. If you can just take your e-reader with you instead of having to lug around all of those books, it makes it significantly easier, right? So it's mobile, it's cheaper, I don't have to store as much. And also, sometimes just having a different technology makes a reluctant reader more inclined to engage with the material. Some of the younger children have what they term multimedia readers. And there's all sorts of games and interactive techniques and tools embedded within the e-reading technology. And so this type of digital reading is very helpful when you have a reluctant reader. So clearly there are a lot of good things about this technology. But what are some of the cons of it? Well, one is that reading comprehension has been found to go down. The amount of material that students or adults retain when they are reading something actually decreases using an e-reader. And I love this statistic. Print books are still the best suited to the optical, cognitive, and metacognitive requirements of the reading brain. Don't you love those big words? While e-paper technology has been shown to be the optical equivalent of print on paper, e-readers still lack the physicality that has been shown to be important. So that's a lot of big words, but what does that really mean? What does that really mean? Basically, how we learn is not simply a function of reading the words. All sorts of sensory processes are going on while we're reading. So you have the weight of the book, how it feels, the spine cracking. When you're looking at the actual physical book, you can sometimes see on the page. And remember, how many of you have had that happened to you? Like you were looking for a quote. Okay, I remember it was on this one page. There was a picture on the corner, and then it's down there on the bottom left column, right? So sometimes it's just that the overlaying of these sensory processes that helps in retaining information. Isn't that fascinating? Another con is that these multimedia readers, the ones that I mentioned for younger students, actually can cause further narrative difficulties. So students, young readers especially, find these somewhat distracting. If you ask students what they have read later, many times they don't have the amount of recall that if they had read them using a physical book. Many of them enjoy, especially the younger readers, they enjoy the different technology components, such as the games or the lighting up of the words. But that has also been found to be a huge distraction for some students. And so I think you have to kind of gauge your own child or your own student and know when is enough. When is it a good thing? When is it a distraction? So that was interesting. The other thing is that memory retention is poor, and this is fascinating. There was a school in Norway at a university that did a study on this, and they asked adults to read a story on a Kindle, and then a separate group to read the story using a physical book. And then the readers had to retell the story in correct order. In other words, proper sequencing of events. And there was a marked difference between the two groups. Those who had read the story using a physical book were able to order the plot much better than those who had not. So that's another, there's just so many studies that are coming out now about this. Another perhaps downside to these e-reading technologies would be that the devices are sometimes actually bad for your health. I don't know if you knew this statistic or not, but children that are ages 8 to 18, can you believe this? Spend an average of almost 8 hours a day, 7.5 hours a day in front of a screen. And what physicians are now telling us is that there is an actual disorder for this. It's called ESS, which basically is screen stimulation. It's a disorder of dysregulation, meaning that the body, the physical body and the mental body, they are constantly in a state of over-arousal, hyper-focused, and then that usually is followed by some sort of crash. Now, some of you may have seen this with your own children. If you've had difficulty, especially the younger ones, if you've had difficulty taking away an electronic game or an e-reader or your smartphone, that they are unwilling to give that up. And so it's very interesting, this new, the issues that we're facing with some of this technology, right? So what do we do about that? What do we do? One of the things that physicians tell us is that not to use these devices at night because it really harms sleep. There actually is no safe amount of after lights texting or reading, especially with an e-reader where the blue light is there, that doesn't cause a sleep disturbance. That then translates over into the next day during the day because you haven't had enough rest at night. So this is something that we have noticed in our own house and that I had to do a lot of research on. Why are my kids unable to sleep? What is going on? They're using their computer to do their homework, or they're using their computer to read. What is going on? And it is because of this blue light that is typically used on the computers and the e-readers. It's more tiring for the brain also to read on a computer or on an e-reader. So you want to be careful that the workload required for reading is different from using a computer or an e-reader than using a physical book. Now, does that mean that Mrs. Guerra thinks that all e-reading is bad? No, I don't believe that. I just think we have to be smart about when we utilize it. For example, textbooks may be a great tool to have just on your computer where you're trying to look up something, or you're using a science formula, or you're using a math problem. Maybe just for passive reading, usually during the day. And by passive reading, what I mean is just reading for fun, reading for pleasure, not necessarily something where you're really trying to dig into the material and deeply understand it. When you just want to review a book to see, do I even like this book? I think those e-readers are phenomenal for that, because usually can just get a sample of the book and start to read it without having to purchase of the book, check it out from the library, lug it around. It's great for that. And sometimes when you just want to reward yourself, or you want to reward your student, or you just want a distraction from the typical way that you're doing things, I think that the e-readers make a great deal of sense. And for the reasons that we mentioned before, they're great reasons: financial, storage, the mobility of the technology. All of those are good things, but I think you have to kind of make sure that you're doing it in a limited fashion. So in summary, these e-readers do have a great place in an academic setting, but you want to be careful with them. And you should read physical books themselves when you're in an active reading situation, when you're trying to dig for material, dig for deep meaning, really focus on details. And so things like narrative stories, I think, are better done on a physical book, perhaps even for reasons of health or retention over time. All of those are good things. And anytime that you want your student to have a great deal of recall, usually a physical book may be better for that. So I hope that some of this was interesting. There's so many studies out there right now. The book that I mentioned earlier, Dr. Victoria Dunkley, Reset Your Child's Brain, she has a great deal of information on the use of technology and what's facing our young people and even us adults today in terms of just health concerns and how the cognition of children is being affected by this technology. So you might want to check that book out. It's highly informative. If you have any questions for me, again, my name is Jodi Guerra, and you can reach me at that email. We have a newsletter and a very active Facebook page. I hope that you'll like our page. I'll be teaching a number of classes for Excelsior classes, and I'd love to hear from you if you have any questions or concerns. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.